The Newsday continues here on One News Now Business. I'm Diego Castro. Here are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate fronts. The combined assets of the country's largest banks saw its fastest growth in 3 months during the first quarter of 2023. That's according to Business World's latest quarterly banking report. The report shows that the combined assets of 25 universal and commercial banks jumped to 22.55 trillion pesos in the January to March period this year. That's up 11.25% from 20.75 trillion pesos from a year ago. The 11.25% growth is faster than the 9.44% expansion seen in the fourth quarter of last year. This was also the quickest pace since the 11.72% increase seen in the second quarter of 2022. Among banks with assets of at least 100 billion pesos, China Bank posted the fastest year-on-year growth of 31.72%. This was followed by Union Bank and RCBC. Heads up, motorists! Fuel prices will see mixed adjustments this week. Starting tomorrow, May 30, oil companies will be implementing a price increase of 1 peso and 10 centavos per liter on gasoline. Prices of kerosene, on the other hand, will be slashed by 35 centavos per liter. This marks the third straight week of price hikes for gasoline and the second week of rollbacks for kerosene. Diesel prices, meanwhile, will see no movement this week. President Bongbong Marcos has formed the Interagency Committee on Inflation and Market Outlook. Under Executive Order Number 28, the committee has been tasked to directly address the increasing prices of commodities. This will serve as an advisory body to the Economic Development Group on measures that would keep inflation within targets. The new committee will be headed by National Economic and Development Authority Secretary Arsenio Balisacan. Other members include the Secretaries of Finance, Budget, Agriculture, Energy, Science and Technology, Trade and Interior Departments. The country's inflation rate eased to 6.6% in April, still above the government's 2 to 4% target range. Typhoon Betty has slightly decelerated as it moves northwestward over the waters of East Cagayan. As of Pag-asa's latest bulletin, the center of the eye of Typhoon Betty was estimated at 470 kilometers east of Apari, Cagayan. It's packing winds of 155 kilometers per hour near the center, gustiness of up to 190 kilometers per hour. Due to inclement weather, classes in several areas have been suspended. Signal number 2 is currently raised over Batanes and the northeastern portion of mainland Cagayan. Meanwhile, signal number 1 is currently raised over the rest of mainland Cagayan and the provinces of Isabela, Apayao, Ilocos Norte, and Abra and Kalinga. The mountain province, Ifugao, Polillo Islands, and Quirino have also been placed under signal number 1. Pag-asa has also raised signal number 1 over some portions of Aurora, Nueva Vizcaya, Catanduanes, Camarines Sur, Camarines Norte, and Ilocos Sur. As the threat of inclement weather continues to hang, some airlines have announced the cancellation of their flights. Cebu Pacific has canceled 5 flights that were scheduled today, May 29. These include trips to and from Manila, Cauayan, Lawag, Masbate, and Tuguegarao. Philippine Airlines has also canceled 3 flights that were bound for Basco, Lawag, and Baguio today due to inclement weather. 5 other flights for Tuesday and Wednesday were also canceled, all of which are either bound for Basco or Lawag. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Diego Castro. The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines has energized the Hermosa San Jose transmission line in Bataan. The NGCP said the 10.2 billion peso project is a major component in its planned 500 kilovolt transmission backbone in Luzon. The project spans Bulacan, Pampanga, and Bataan, where it is expected to strengthen services and accommodate fresh bulk of power. Meanwhile, the Energy Department said San Miguel Global Power eyes full capacity resumption of the Iligan natural gas-fired power plant by June 9. According to DOE Undersecretary Cristina Guevara, they will start with 600 megawatts and eventually ramp it up to 1,200 megawatts. Still on energy, the DOE is now preparing for the third round of its green energy auction program this year. Assistant Secretary Maylene Capongcol said the agency could offer 9,000 megawatts worth of geothermal and hydroelectric projects. Capongcol noted, though, that the auction goal, which is equivalent to 9 gigawatts, remains preliminary. GEA 3 will be held in the fourth quarter, as the DOE still needs to develop auction policy and guidelines for geothermal and impounding hydro. The program aims to promote renewables as a primary source of energy through competitive selection of output. The Bangko Sentral will extend the relief measure called Alternative Reserve Compliance for small banks. In a report by Business World, BSP Governor Felipe Medalla says the relief measure is no longer necessary as the economy has already recovered from the pandemic. However, Medalla assures that the central bank will make some considerations for small lenders. This is to ensure that there will be no adverse impact after the relief measure expires on June 30. During the pandemic, the BSP allowed banks to counter lending to MSMEs and pandemic-hit enterprises as part of their alternative compliance with reserve requirements. The measure has been extended 3 times since April 2020 and is set to expire in June. On to some global updates. U.S. President Joe Biden calls on lawmakers to pass the debt ceiling deal he struck with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Biden said McCarthy negotiated in good faith for the agreement, which the Democrat president described as good news for Americans. Prior to Biden's statement, McCarthy expressed confidence that majority of his fellow Republicans in Congress would support the deal. The agreement would suspend the country's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling while capping spending in 2024 and 2025 budgets. If approved by the U.S. Congress, it will prevent the U.S. government from defaulting on its debt, which would otherwise result in economic catastrophe.
It takes the threat of catastrophic default off the table, protects our hard-earned and historic economic recovery, and the agreement also represents a compromise, which means no one got everything they want. But that's the responsibility of governing. And this is a deal that's good news, I believe you'll see, for the American people. The agreement prevents the worst possible crisis, a default for the first time in our nation's history. An economic recession, retirement accounts devastated, millions of jobs lost. It also protects key priorities and accomplishments and values that congressional Democrats and I have fought long and hard for.
And those are the top business stories of the hour. I'm Diego Castro. Join us again at 2 p.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.